Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now today is going to be a fun video because I'm going to get everything wrong in this video, I can guarantee it. Basically today I'm going to be trying to predict the Lions 15, or well, put my opinion on it, so what I think the Lions 15 should be for the first test. Hopefully this video will be out before the team is announced, but if not, it still matters. It's my opinion on who I think should start in the first test, and I might do this as well before the second and before the third, depending on how the first test goes and if there's any changes that I would make. So let's get straight into who my 15 would be for the first test against South Africa. So starting off with the front row, my front row for the first test would be Wyn Jones, Jamie George and Tadhg Furlong. Now let's start off with Wyn Jones. I would pick Wyn Jones, and for me this is quite tough. I mean, everyone thought at the start it would be Mako Vunipola who would just run away with it and start the test, but to be fair, he's been one of the most disappointing players on the tour and is a shadow of what he used to be. He's not on good form at the moment, and it's really between Wyn Jones or Rory Sutherland, who have both had brilliant tours so far. Some would say Rory Sutherland maybe pushes that, but I genuinely think Wyn Jones is slightly better in scrummaging and slightly better in the loose as well than Rory Sutherland. I think I've seen a little bit more from him to get into the main squad. I think Rory Sutherland definitely deserves it. Could be, well, I'd put him on the bench anyway as a super sub, an impact sub, and maybe even starting for the second test, depending on what happens in the first. But for me, from all of the games that I've seen, I would pick Wyn Jones as the loose head. For the hooker, I have picked Jamie George. I think this one is quite a tough one because they've all played brilliantly. Jamie George has done well, of course he captained the Lions earlier. Ken Owens as well has had a decent tour, and Luke Cowan-Dickey's been quite a surprise as well. So they all definitely deserve their place in that squad, to be honest. But I would pick Jamie George. I think he's slightly been better. I think Luke Cowan-Dickey's probably been the best hooker on tour, if it was me. But if I'm picking against South Africa, I would want experience, and someone like Jamie George brings that. As much as Ken Owens maybe has a bit more than Jamie George in experience, I think Jamie George has slightly been better, and he also brings good leadership as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Cowan-Dickey goes to the bench, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Ken Owens is on the bench just to add more experience coming on and seeing out the game. And if Luke Cowan-Dickey doesn't make the squad, it would be disappointing for him. But, you know, I think it's a massive game, and as much as Luke Cowan-Dickey could and possibly should get into the starting 23, I think Jamie George will probably start, and I would start him, and I think Ken Owens might just make the bench, which would be unlucky for Luke Cowan-Dickey. And for the tight head prop, I would say Tadhg Furlong, and this is probably the only one that really is just plain sailing. I think Tadhg Furlong's had it throughout the whole tour. He has been a brilliant player on this tour. He's been his usual self, to be honest. There's not really much to say about him. You know what you get when you get Tadhg Furlong. Brilliant in the loose, brilliant in the scrum, and especially with the forward power that the South Africans have, I think he would probably be the best bet to go against him. Head to head, best bet, and he is a brilliant scrummager, and that is an area where South Africa will target, so it will be good to have him in the squad. And I think it's just an obvious case. I mean, Carl Sinclair has done well, and Xander Fagerson's done well as well. They've both had decent tours, but I think Tadhg Furlong's experience and the way he's played in this tour as well, he's so good you almost forget what he does. He's just been so consistent, so good. He's always there, and I think this is probably one of the easiest choices. Tadhg Furlong is my tight head prop. Moving on to who I would pick in the second row in the locks. My locks for the first test would be Maro Itoje and Ian Henderson. Now the locks, probably the hardest position to pick out of all of them. But for me, I would say Maro Itoje and Ian Henderson. I think they've been the most consistent throughout the tour. think Mario Itoje's got better and better and better as the tour's gone on. He's been his usual self. I think he played brilliantly against South Africa A. I think he was one of the best players for us then, and that's practically the same team as they'll face in the first test. So I think he is nailed on, and he's such a good player anyway. And Ian Henderson as well, the leadership, the consistency he shows. Again, he does all the unseen work, all the rucking, everything like that. He's just been brilliant as well this tour, like he was back in New Zealand. And yeah, for me, it'll be those two. I think it'll be tough, um, really, for some of the second rows. I think Adam Beard's been a surprise of the tour as well after coming in for Alan Wynne-Jones. I think he has surprised a lot of people and how good he's been in the tour. I think Johnny Hill's been very good as well, especially against the Stormers. He played brilliantly against the Stormers. Courtney Laws has also had a very good tour as well. So they've all played well, and of course you have to throw Alan Wynne-Jones in the mix as well. I don't think he'll get there, mainly because he's coming back from injury. He's only had 10 minutes against Japan, half a game against the Stormers. I don't think it's enough. Maybe the second and the third test, and maybe he might go on the bench. I think it would be really undeserved if he started the test. Hence why I wouldn't start him, because you've got some players who have come all the way through, and then just chucking him in when he hasn't really played. It would just be a bit unfair. You'd pick the players who have played the best in the tour, and for me, that would be Mario Itoje and Ian Henderson in the second row. So they would be my second rowers for the first test. The back row, flankers are number 8, another tough one, but I probably gone a bit different to what people have predicted themselves. I would say that I would go with Tom Curry, Hamish Watson, and Taulupe Faletau. Now, I know Hamish Watson and Tom Curry are both sevens, but for me, they've been the best flankers in the tour. They've both been insane. And so has Tyke Byrne. Given Tyke Byrne has played very well, and he's played very well in the loose, making those runs, making those lines. But I think the work that Tom Curry and Hamish Watson do around the pitch just excels that. And yes, they're both sevens, but if you think about it, Tom Curry does play six often for England when Sam Underhill's fit. So it's not like Tom Curry can't play in that position. He can play there regularly. He is a seven, but he can play six. And I would do that because I think their work in the breakdown is really important. I think both of them are slightly better at that than Tyke Byrne. Tyke Byrne's very good around the pitch, with his handling and with his running lines and stuff like that. But against South Africa, you need really strong breakdown. You need a strong breakdown, and if you want anyone to challenge the Saffers at the breakdown, it would be Tom Curry and Hamish Watson. They've both had outstanding tours. I think Tom Curry's probably, for me, been the player of the tour. He has been outstanding all tour, Tom Curry, and Hamish Watson has been close to it as well. And as much as they're both sevens, I think that would be, for me, the best pairing. Tom Curry and Hamish Watson, for me, the best two flankers in the tour, starting. As much as Tom Curry would be six, he plays six for England, so it would be alright. And number 8, I would say Taulupe Faletau. Mainly, I would pick him for the experience that he has. I think Sam Simmonds and Jack Conan have both, in their own way, been very good. But Faletau just adds that experience and adds that know-how on a Lions tour, etc., etc. And I think he will get that number 8 slot. But either or, I don't know who would make the bench out of Sam Simmonds or Jack Conan if either of them do. But it would be good to see one of them on the bench because they could add a lot on into the game coming on from the bench. And I think if the Lions do go a 6-2 split on the bench, then one of Sam Simmonds or Jack Conan will go on the bench, and I think that will be a good bench with one of them to come on and add that oomph in the last 20 or so minutes in the game and to push the game on and hopefully get the victory. So yeah, they would be Tom Curry, Hamish Watson, and Taulupe Faletau as my back row. Moving on to the backs now, and we'll start off with the half-backs, 9 and 10. I would go with Conor Murray and Dan Biggar as the half-backs. Number 9, I think it would really be between Murray and Price. I think Ali Price has been the best scrum half on the tour, but if I was going to pick My squad, I would say Conor Murray, and I think he'll be the captain as well. Captain of the tour, technically now, even though Alan Wynne-Jones is back. But I think he'll be captain and he'll start. You just got to have that experience and that know-how. And as good as Ali Price has been, I think he'll be probably better on the bench to come on in the last 10 minutes or so and add some more energy that he has showed throughout the tour. Throughout the tour, and Conor Murray for me will be the starter. Um, he's just he's just so good, isn't he, Conor Murray? I don't think he's fully shown what he can do in this tour, but he's got the experience, he's got the know-how. Of course, he's been on two other tours which have been successful for the Lions, and he has been a big part of that. And I think he can be a big part of this one as well. And I think he'll be the captain, and he'll start. And for number 10, I've gone with Dan Biggar over Owen Farrell. Of course, Finn Russell will be out of the first test. Otherwise, I might have picked him, but he hasn't played that much, so I probably wouldn't have anyway. And then, of course, you've got Marcus Smith, who played brilliantly against the Stormers, but I think it's probably just a level too high for him. Maybe you might get a sight of him on the bench in one of the games, but I don't think so. I think Dan Biggar will be number 10. I think he's been the best number 10 on the tour for me, and if you're playing against South Africa, you need control. Um, you can't just be loose with the ball, and Dan Biggar is so good at controlling a game. His kicking game, his air game as well, and he's a strong, strong player as well. Not scared to go into the tackle, not scared to get hit, and that is what you need against South Africa. That, with the fact he's probably been the best 10 on the tour, he will be my fly half for the first test. Next up, the centres. And my centres of this first test would be Bundy Aki and Chris Harris. Number 12 would be, for me, Bundy Aki. I think, again, he's actually been quite a surprise on the tour. When he was picked to go on tour, people were like, he probably doesn't deserve it, didn't have the best Six Nations. But he has genuinely been very good throughout this whole tour and completely deserving of a place. And I think he's the right player to play against South Africa. Big player who can make those runs, make those lines, and is decent defensively as well against what would be a strong South African centre partnership. If we're expecting Dialende and Am to be the centres for South Africa, I think we would need to go likewise and pick strong centres instead of loose, fast centres. And I think Aki shows that at 12, and he's been brilliant in this tour, making those runs that he usually does. And the way he's played has been brilliant. And I think he's probably the best to go against the likes of Dialende, who would be the man opposite him most likely. And I think he would be the best bet. And for me, 13 would be Chris Harris. I think Robbie Henshaw could be close. I just don't know if he's ready yet, because Robbie Henshaw, of course, injured throughout the majority of the tour, bar the opening game against Japan and the game against the Stormers. Played well against the Stormers, but I don't know if he's fully ready there yet. I might put him on the bench. I think he would probably go on the bench and then start in the other tests. But I think if you've got to give it to someone who's played very well in the tour, Chris Harris. He's been very good as well. Another surprise of the tour. I didn't think Chris Harris would be as far up the pecking order as he is looking. I think he's been very good on tour. And for me, I would pick Chris Harris over Henshaw just because of the fitness issue. I wouldn't risk Henshaw just yet, but he definitely, for me, would get in the squad maybe for the second or the third test. You've also got Elliot Daly, who's played very well in the tour as well, but I think Elliot Daly will probably be on the bench as a versatile player to come on, whether it's fullback, wing, 10, centre, even scrum half. We've seen him play in the Lions shirt, so in this tour, so he'd probably be on the bench. As much as he's had a good tour, I think he's probably the wrong player to start against the South Africans, and I think you need those big centres, and that's what Aki and Harris are, and they would be my centres. Now for the back three, the back line, and for me it would be Josh Adams, Duhan van der Merwe, and Stuart Hogg. These three, I think the fullback probably wasn't too hard, but the wingers, I think all wingers have been very good. Anthony Watson has been good, Louis Rees-Zammit's been good, Josh Adams and Duhan van der Merwe have scored tons of tries, and ultimately that is why I would pick them ahead of the other two, because they've scored more tries, they've shown more try scoring prowess. If you look at Josh Adams' record of try scoring recently, he is on fire. Can't remember the amount. I think it's about 8 tries he scored in this tour. That is a lot of tries. And Duhan van der Merwe as well has a hat trick on this tour. He scored about 5 or 6 as well. So I would always pick, when you're picking wingers, I would always pick the ones who are in their best form and best try scoring form. And for me, that's Josh Adams and Duhan van der Merwe. Anthony Watson, Louis Rees-Zammit have both scored tries as well. They've both played well. But if you're picking on form and you're picking the best in the tour, I think it will be hard not to pick Josh Adams or Duhan van der Merwe. Both offer something different in attack. Duhan van der Merwe with his massive stature and can bulldoze over players. Josh Adams with his good feet and good kicking game as well. So I think it has to be those two. They've been the best two wingers on tour, and they would be who I would pick to go on the wing. Well, fullback for me would be Stuart Hogg. I think Liam Williams is suffering from a little bit of an injury at the moment, and I don't think he has been as good as he usually is on this tour. I think you can also throw Andy Watson in the mix. He has had a very good tour as well, but he hasn't really played too much at 15, so it would be hard to pick him at 15. But Hoggy has that leadership. Hoggy has he will probably be a co-captain in the squad as well, and I think it would be hard to look past Stuart Hogg. I think he's not just been the best fullback on tour, but he's been the best fullback out of the Four Nations for quite a long time now, and it would be hard to look past him, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, I would pick Stuart Hogg as my fullback. So yeah, that is going to be my squad for the first test. Let's run through it again. Wyn Jones, Jamie George, Tadhg Furlong, Maro Itoje, Ian Henderson, Tom Curry, Hamish Watson, Talupe Faletau, Connor Murray, Dan Biggar, Josh Adams, Bundy Aki, Chris Harris, Duhan van der Merwe, and Stuart Hogg will be my starting 15 for the test. Be interesting to see how many I get right. Probably will barely get any right, but there you go. That is my opinion on who I think should start the first test. Depending on how everything goes, I might do this for the second and the third as well. So look forward to that for more probably mistakes from me. But yeah, thank you all for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and subscribe for more rugby content. I will see you later. Have a good one.